Good evening. I'd like to call this Tuesday, October 1st, 2019 meeting of Middletown City Council to order. Please stand and join me in moment of meditation and the pledge of the flag. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. First item, we'll call the roll, please. Ms. Skank.
Ms. Vettori.
Here.
Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Mulligan.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here. I'm looking to see if Pastor Childers is available up there. Is he hiding up there?
We're here.
We're good to go?
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect timing. Mix up the agenda here a little bit. But,
Come down.
let's do it here at the podium right here. So. Good evening. Right on. Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
So it's certainly a welcome to Pastor Childers. He was here to present and encourage us to recognize the partnership the United States has with the State of Israel and present a proclamation on behalf of that effort. Whereas the State of Israel is a great ally to the United States in the Middle East, and whereas the United States of America was the first country to recognize the new State of Israel on May 14, 1948, and whereas people from all walks of life and organizations in Middletown, Ohio have come together in support of Israel. One such organization is Christians United for Israel, which recently celebrated the achievement of more than 7 million members. Now therefore I, Lawrence Mulligan, Mayor of the City of Middletown, Butler, Warren County, State of Ohio, do recognize and support the State of Israel by proclaiming October 1st, 2019 as Stand With Israel Day in the City of Middletown. Congratulations. Thanks for work, Pastor Childers. So would you like to offer a couple words on what you've been doing?
Well, this is,
Pastor,
Yes.
Rabbi?
I was going to say, if I may, thank you for having me. I'm sorry about the traffic on 75. Yesterday and today were the holiday of Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. And a week from tonight and Tuesday and Wednesday of next week is the holiday of Yom Kippur, or the observance. Yom Kippur is the day of awe. The Day of Atonement. The 10 days in between are referred to as the Yamim Noraim, which are the days of awe. It's during this time period that traditionally we stop and take account of ourselves. What have we been doing this past year? What can we be doing better? And specifically with regard to our relationship to one another. How can we improve on that relationship? That is why when I was told about this, very specifically, I said, if we can do it on this date, it would be really appropriate, because today begins that time period of how we relate to each other, focused specifically for this year. So I thank you very much, and I look forward to continuing this. It has a negative, a double negative, the anti-Semitism, so it gets a little confusing. But I thank you very much.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate you coming up. All right, with that, we can move to city manager reports regarding homelessness. Mr. Adkins?
Yes, and I'm in charge of technology, so God help us all tonight. As is often the case, we go months without having a full house, and then when I decide to take a long weekend and leave the state, things get excited, and Ed Richter puts interesting articles in the paper that it's true. That
Reporters don't write the headlines. I've learned that.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway, this came across my phone on Friday, and it's been part of Friday and part of Monday, trying to figure out what was going on while I was in Tennessee at the top of the mountain trying to relax, which didn't happen. But that being said, this is not something we're unfamiliar with. And I worked on a lot of this morning. I will tell you that somewhere in this probably is the wrong date. I needed a quickly formatted PowerPoint, so there's the wrong date on some of these slides, but the formatting was right, so Shelby will be happy with me. These are all headlines I pulled off from searching this morning. Homelessness in Ohio back on the rise from Local 12. LA's homeless surged 75% in 6 years. New York, Dallas, Iowa, Wisconsin. It's not a Middletown problem. It's not a Butler County problem. It's a problem that's going on across the state. I think it's a number of things going on. It's the opiate crisis. It's the switch over to meth. It is the haves and the have-nots of this country. And what has happened is, as we have gotten to 4% unemployment, if you can work and you want to work, you probably have a job. And what happens is we end up with the group that we are now seeing wandering our streets, which are often effectively unemployable people due to addiction, mental illness, disability. Sometimes it's bad luck or bad decisions, but they are a chronically homeless group of people due to the lack of resources and the lack of things going on in their good things going on in their life. We do have the shelters in Butler County. I'm not aware that Warren County has any shelters. I know that they sometimes bring people across. We do have people that request from other cities to come here. I just want to get out of the cold, I want a hot meal, and they are brought here for shelter to Hope House. Some homeless are dropped here because the city doesn't have a shelter, and we do. We don't have any place to put you. Middletown's the closest shelter. Do you want to come? Yes, I do. They bring them over. That happens. We do have jurisdictions that occasionally dump their homeless here, and unceremoniously. That's true. When the chief and I are aware that a particular jurisdiction has dropped someone off in the last incidents, we call. Chief calls chief. I call the city manager. We talk about what's going on. We talk about what their policy is and what we should be expecting in the future. And those are generally decent discussions, and I think generally they tell us the truth. There are a lot of resources already going on in the county. The Butler County Housing and Homeless Coalition is probably the largest. I was part of that coalition from 2009 to 2014 as the Middletown representative. And at that time, we saw in many cases, we had this group, but we also had a bigger group of homeless at that time. And it was people that were going through the recession. People had lost their jobs, people had been foreclosed on. And I would call them more situational homeless. Something had happened in their life that had brought them to homelessness. And I won't say they were easier, but there were less pieces to get them back on their feet again, get them a job, get them an apartment, get them going again. And they had a lot of the social skills and background and family support that allowed them, in many cases, to get more easily back into the game and get housing under them again. The Butler County Homeless Coalition uses county HUD funds. They sponsor either directly or partially 386 beds throughout Butler County with supportive services. If you look at the listing of who's on it, it's the two main cities of Hamilton and Middletown, Butler County, BMHA, and a number of different providers of either shelters, social services, addiction services, women's services, veterans groups. It is a comprehensive group of people working diligently, and I will tell you that even as I became city manager and I quit going to these on a monthly basis, even at that time they would tell you the resources are not there to handle everything that we wish we could do. I talked to them this morning. They are happy to meet with Middletown businesses to hear their concerns. They are happy to see if any of their existing programs have openings that would fit in to what's going on in downtown Middletown, and see if any of those people are on their radar or not on their radar that they could offer additional services to. One of the things I think everybody forgot about, at least I did not hear from down in Tennessee, we have a new facility coming. It's almost done. We did the groundbreaking on August 30th of last year for a new Hope House. We passed a CRA. We negotiated Butler County Metropolitan Housing vouchers. It's $11.5 million new shelter. Ed wrote a nice article about it a couple weeks ago. The new shelter moves Hope House out of downtown and takes those people out of the downtown area. It continues the 50 temporary shelter beds, but it adds 30 permanent apartments, which means those people will not have to be walking around downtown after they're kicked out of the shelter for the morning. They will have apartments and beds and places to eat and take showers that will be available to them. They have counseling and social services. They have healthcare professionals Doctors, nurses, mental health, and addiction specialists will all be available at that location. It's scheduled to be completed by the end of this year. I drove by this morning and took pictures. I don't think that doesn't look to me like it's 90 days ready to go, but it's $11.5 million. It does take quite a while to build that sophisticated a facility. If they don't make the end of December, it's coming. It might be January, it might be February, but it's well on its way. We have been heavily involved in it, and the whole point of building that facility was to move all of that out of downtown and away from those businesses. So it's not like we're not doing anything. In most cases there, the people who are coming here as homeless are not committing a crime. We have the shelters that most of Butler County and Warren County do not have. If the homeless person has not committed a crime, then operationally we are limited in what we can do to deal with that situation. They commit a crime, they can be arrested. We don't see other city police cruisers often stopping in our town, dropping people off. They use taxis, they use other ways to get people here. And if somebody in some other city outside of Middletown says they want to come to Middletown to a shelter and they get a taxi voucher, that's legal. It is, whether we want it or not. When we've got the shelters, we are going to get these kind of people. We often get the story secondhand. We find somebody at midnight, ask them what they're doing, and they tell us whatever it is they want to tell us. It's not like we see somebody from City X jumping up and saying, hey, here's another one, and dumping them on the street. That's not how this works. We get sometimes an addict, a mentally ill person who's trying to explain to us how they got to Middletown, and we do what we can to help them and get them in the shelter if we can. But this is tough. If there is a solution, it may be a political solution. It may not be an operational solution. We operate, as an example, looking at Hamilton. They have 45 more cops than we do. That's 15 per every shift. 15 extra cops for every shift than we do. If I had 15 more cops on the street, I could do more downtown. I don't have them, we can't afford them. That's just the way it is. And so these are tough. You've asked us to do additional traffic enforcement downtown. We had to run overtime. We don't have the staff to do that. We had to run overtime because we're going from call to call to call. And so if we're going to do something more than Hope House, if we're going to do something more downtown, staff will do anything you want us to do, but you're going to have to give us clear instruction of what you want us to do. You're going to have to give us the resources to be able to do it. So if there was an easy solution, frankly, we would have already done it. It would have already been in play. This wouldn't be a problem. These people wouldn't have to come tonight. There isn't an easy solution. Most of them are here illegally, and they haven't done anything wrong. The other thing I'll point out, this is going to anger some people, is when we talk to retail people who are having problems like this, they usually have loss prevention. You talk to a Kohl's, you talk to a Walmart, you talk to Kroger, Meijer, they have loss prevention. I realize that our local businesses individually cannot have loss prevention. I get that. But that's why there's things like downtown redevelopment districts and special improvement districts. That's why those vehicles exist, so that you can create a way to assess yourself and then bring in security as much as you need, as much as you can afford as a group for the hours that you think are important to do it. Again, none of these are silver bullets. There aren't any. Or again, they wouldn't be here. They'd all have homes. They'd all have jobs. And we wouldn't have this problem. But these are in many cases mentally ill, addicted, chronic people. And, you know, again, we're willing to do anything the council wants us to do. The Homeless Coalition is more than willing to come up and meet with whoever would like to talk to them. It would be easier on them if there was a group like DMI or somebody that they could interact with, rather than trying to meet 34 different business owners. But this is a tough thing, and I realize the people that are here are passionate. People here are pioneers. People here tonight from downtown have taken us places that we simply couldn't have imagined 4 or 5 years ago. And if I had a solution, I'd knock it out for them. So just wanted to, before we got started, you know, remind everybody, especially about Hope House. A lot of this, I think, goes away when Hope House comes on online. But,
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Any questions from council before I move to citizen comments?
I do have one question. You had mentioned we might see it from municipality or locality X. Are we also seeing it from nonprofits?
Not that I've been told.
I mean, I think there's a lot to unpack here. I'm not sure if we'll do it now or in council comments, because I want to give
Sure.
everyone here the ability to speak. but
Okay.
I'll
I appreciate
reserve
that. Okay,
comment
very
for
good.
comment.
I had one question.
Please.
With regard to your communications with the other police agencies, have they been in writing or is it all over the phone?
It's been by phone, the ones that I've
Okay.
had.
Is there any paper trail that would say, here's a written request to please cease and desist?
I'm not from me. I don't know if the chief does or not. I simply don't.
Anything else from council? All right, with that, we'll move to citizens' comments. First card I have this evening is from Miss Etha Walters. Saw her there earlier. Did she sneak out? There she is. Yeah, I knew you were up there, so. Thanks for coming down tonight.
Thank you.
Could we get that microphone down just a little bit? There we go.
I didn't want to break it.
Oh, you're all right. Can we get your name and address for the record, please?
Since I didn't break the microphone, my name is Etha Walters. I live at 230 Park Street, apartment C, Middletown, Ohio, 45044. I have the good fortune to live next to the library. My position is on both sides. I live and work here in Middletown. Most of you know who I am and know that I'm a photographer, and I promote the local musicians and do portrait work as well as other things that I'm involved in. One of them, I'm also on the board of Butler County Pagan Gatherings. That is a new organization that is currently being formed, and we're getting involved with many of charity work within the county. We've had peace demonstration, and we've done other work, and my partner will speak more on that. But as someone who lives and works in the city of Middletown, and being a single person who lives independently, I can appreciate, especially being disabled, I can appreciate both sides because I've experienced, people urinating and hallucinating and other things out in public along the library. They've camped out in the alley behind my house. They've done different ornery things that aren't really illegal or gets them arrested, but they have done things that are menacing. And there's been a couple of times where I've been intimidated on my way home from shooting. Normally, with the locals, the local homeless, I don't have any issues. I know who most of them are from working with the BASH and all of that. So, but any trouble that I've gotten has come from new people. On the same token, being disabled and living a financially fragile existence on disability and many of the resources that we are seeking for these people, my luck has not been lost on me that I have a home. And I have a place to go home to. And I have food in my refrigerator and a shower to take showers and clothes in my closet. And I have seen other disabled people out on the street. And this is a precious issue for me, especially when it comes to housing. If somebody like me is working in Middletown at a minimum wage, we cannot afford places that are available to us without government assistance. And then there's a waiting list to get in because there's not enough low-income housing for people within the city. I mean, the cheapest apartments available are like $700. And that's what a lot of people like me get a month to live on. And when you don't have those resources like Section 8 and like Butler Metropolitan and Hope House kicks you out during the day. I mean, where do you plug your wheelchair in when you need to recharge? Or where are you supposed to use the bathroom? Where are you supposed to get something to drink or eat or any of these things? I mean, I see both sides. And one of the things that I would like to see our group do, Butler County Pagan Gatherings, we are visiting the different resources available to see if we can build a network where everything is more interconnected, and maybe, you know, we can help provide this information to the new homeless that is coming into the city to guide them on where to go and how to go and who to talk to and what resources are available. But we want to help and solve the problem. And this is a new thing. We're just laying down the groundwork and tossing around ideas now. And any insight that is provided here today is going to be noted, and anything we can do to help.
Okay. Well, appreciate you coming down and sharing your thoughts this evening, as well as your time here in town, and appreciate that. So
Thank you.
thanks for coming down. All right. Next card I have this evening is from Mr. Randy Bell. Mr. Bell. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Randy Bell, 8049 Snyder Road, Mason, Ohio. I work in Butler County, born and raised in Hamilton. Almost 30 years as a social worker in the trenches. By the way, before I begin, I want to thank all of you, city council members, vice mayor, mayor, city clerk, everyone who's here, who cares enough to come. It's important. It's good the community's here. It should be an important topic. So I didn't want to show lack of gratitude. Also, gratitude for the great goddess Shakti for my breath and being. I am a social worker. I'm also the founder of the group that Ethan mentioned, Butler County Pagan Gatherings. In our value system, each of us are sacred. We're all deeply interconnected and interdependent. We look to one another as brothers and sisters. We echo the world's great religious traditions, which at their height teach compassion and love for one another. And sometimes love is not convenient. Unfortunately, we live in a world of fast food minds and easy solutions. We look for quick fixes. We don't look at the deep core reasons for things. We pass our problems off to other people, hoping that we won't have to deal with it because it's inconvenient. And love is sometimes inconvenient. Life's inconvenient. The most important things in our lives take a lot of work. Our relationships matter. We matter to each other. We don't know what it's like to be homeless. Probably most of us in here never imagine it, despite the fact that many of us probably are a paycheck away or two from being homeless, potentially, lest we forget. Life is fragile. Our conditions are fragile. As a social worker, I make a meager income. I came into the field to serve. I do have a unique position because I've seen and worked with the homeless up front for almost 30 years. Most of that's been in this county, 10 years in Hamilton County. I've worked with agencies such as the homeless shelters in Middletown, Hamilton, every nook and cranny of the eighth largest of the 88 counties, I think. I love Butler County. My heart's in Hamilton, despite the fact I live in Mason. My home is always in Hamilton. I work in Middletown all the time. Being homeless is a very difficult situation. People do not wake up in the morning and say, gee, I think I'm going to decide to be homeless. Rather, our research, our greatest research, shows that there are systemic reasons, a variety of coalescing factors of intersectionality that lead up to people being homeless. It's easy to point at the individual and say, it's their fault. Mr. Homeless Guy, you're a drug addict and you're mentally ill. It's easy to demonize that individual. What's harder is to look in the mirror and say, what as a society are we doing? But again, our world's greatest religious traditions teach us to do what? To be compassionate. While I'm not Christian, I'm very familiar with Christianity. Jesus spoke mostly about what? Taking care of the homeless, helping those that are in need. He didn't talk about inconveniently brushing them away, getting rid of them so that we don't have to see them or deal with them. He taught that we're supposed to do as he did. If not, what's the point? So what I would suggest is that we look at the core reasons for this symptom. It's so inconvenient, and it is inconvenient. I love small businesses. I'm friends with many small business owners, and I'm deeply connected in the small business community. But what matters, what we're really talking about, is how do we address core solutions? And mental illness can be part of that. Racism is part of it. We have systematic inequities that make life difficult for some people who are not born with silver spoons. We have people that are victims of domestic violence. Can I tell you how many women that I've worked with over 30 years who have been beaten on a regular basis by their mates who end up homeless with their children? And then we tell them, well, we don't want you living in tents either. We get upset with them when they're resourceful enough to find a homeless shelter in the tri-state that will take them. We get upset with them for being that resourceful, for saying, how dare you come to my county? Well, why did they come to our county? Because Butler County rocks. I worked in Hamilton County. Butler County is amazing. We have great programs here, but they can be greater. We all can be greater. We have to look at what is causing all of this particular issue. I mentioned race, I mentioned class.
Mr. Bell, I'd like you to maybe wrap up.
Yeah.
We have a lot of cards.
I understand. I can rattle on forever, and I apologize.
That's okay. So,
profusely.
appreciate your time.
Again, I would suggest that we actually give more funding rather than slash programs that affect the poor, that we actually fund these programs. I was at the Robert Hill Community Center earlier talking to an employee about this very topic in preparation, and she said, guess what? We're losing our programming in a lot of ways. We have less of that program. Ohio Means Jobs in Fairfield helps to empower people. We need an Ohio Means Job in Middletown. Help get people the tools they need to be successful. The American dream belongs to everybody. It doesn't just belong to us in this room. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Okay, appreciate you coming down this evening. All right, next card I have this evening is from Mr. Jeremy Lucanis. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Jeremy Lucanis. I live at 214 South Main Street.
Good evening.
How are you? I'm here speaking as a resident of the South Main Historic District. We moved here in 2014. One of our requirements of moving to Middletown from out of town was that at 11 o'clock at night, we could walk from the city center to our home. The night before we wrote our offer, we did that. We got stuck at the Sorg Opera House for 3 hours doing a tour, eventually made it to our home at 1 o'clock in the morning. What we learned while that was going on was that the reputation Middletown had, that the newspapers and news media had portrayed Middletown to be, weren't necessarily true. We found out that our neighborhood was very safe. We had lots of access to resources. So the dramatization of what goes on in Middletown sort of overshadows the fact that we're a modern city with modern hospitals. We have 35 parks, bike trails, a vibrant downtown, and a population that spans sometimes as many as 6 generations. Living on South Main and frequenting one of 35 downtown businesses on a daily basis, you start to recognize faces and who's who, and who's familiar and who isn't. In late 2018, we started noticing an influx of people that we didn't recognize. They didn't feel like they were from here. They were wandering around. They weren't familiar with where they were. So we started doing things, trying to see what was going on with technology. So we installed high-definition cameras in the neighborhood. We started flying drones at night during the day, and started capturing some of what was going on. One of the things that we started seeing was late-night drop-offs in the alleys. People pulling up in cars, unloading an abundance of things and items and clothes, and getting dumped into an alley. And I can tell you the excitement you get when your technology alerts you that there's some activity in the alley. You think you're going to capture crime, and you're capturing a woman getting dropped off in the middle of the night in an alley. And I would like to think that if that drop-off was on the up and up, and that person was destined for a shelter or some sort of public service, why are they hiding, dumping them in an alley? We have to repeatedly call the police because we have people breaking in and taking shelter inside of vacant homes, which also increases our cost because we're left with one tool: tear the house down, move the problem. We keep moving the problem everywhere. In the last 4 years, I've seen a significant rejuvenation of our downtown. We don't want to let that slip away. I know there's a lot of people in here representing downtown businesses, but there are some residents in here, as downtown is our neighborhood. So I have confidence that our city leadership will find a resolution to these issues. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming down this evening. All right, next card I have this evening is from Miss Heather Gibson. Ms. Gibson. Good evening. Can we get your name and address for the record, please?
Heather Gibson, 3215 Morgan Street, Middletown, Ohio.
Okay, thank you.
5044. I'm here because, well, clearly because Chief Meterspaw opened the door. So the elephant's not hiding behind the couch anymore. You know, we've known for years that this has been happening. I've known for years that this has been happening, and I, like so many others, has turned a blind eye to it. But, you know, once it's out in the room, it's out in the room. So, you know, let's discuss it. You know, a year ago, you know, we're used to a constant ebb and flow. You know, downtown, I've been down here 4.5 years, and, you know, we've got relationships with our local homeless people. You know, the coffee shop is, you know, we fed them, we give them coffee. We have a great pay it forward program where the community at large has contributed to it. But the last 1.5 years, the ebb and flow has changed. And many of you know, because I've talked to some of you, I've begged for help. I've begged because the new people that we have coming in town, they are not like our normal homeless people. They are mean, they are aggressive, they are mentally unstable. And I'm sure that you're going to hear stories here tonight, so I'm not going to tie up all the time doing what other people are going to do. But just as a given point, 2 weeks ago, a woman pulled her pants down and pooped in front of Pendleton Arts Center, right there on the sidewalk. Not from around here. Don't know whether she was on drugs or she wasn't, but it doesn't really matter to me. What matters to me is I had 4 customers sitting there that saw it happen. Then she came into my coffee shop and started panhandling. That's what matters to me. You know, we may look at this and say we're showing negativity towards Middletown, but I can promise you they're already seeing it. They come to my coffee shop, they see it. This new group of people, you can't tell them no. If they come in and you tell them no, they're screaming at you all the way out the door, cussing at you, calling you names, calling you every name under the sun, and threatening you. I have staff that is afraid to come to work in the morning alone. Now I have to hire an extra person to work. I have mothers who are afraid to let their daughters work at my coffee shop in the evening because most of my employees are young women. Now I have to close early because I can't staff it, because my staff is afraid to be downtown after certain hours. The police department have been wonderful. There's nothing more they can do. As you said, they're very low staffed. We all know that. Another problem that we have. You know, 1987, I took the police test. There were 350 people that took that test with me. 1987, we didn't have half the property we have, and how many cops did we have? I don't know, but I'd say about 67, probably. Now we have, what, 6 on the street at one time? That's ridiculous. A city of this size should not be that way. We have got to allot more money into our system so that we can better police our streets, not just downtown. Sunday morning on Oxford State Road, right next to the road, was 2 people, a man and a woman, laying on the curbside with all of their surroundings, everything they owned in a basket, sleeping this far from the road, right on the road Sunday morning. That was in Amanda. They're in Jackson Lane. There's encampments everywhere. It isn't safe. It's just not safe. My partner and I have invested our entire life savings in Middletown. We raise children in Middletown. You know, I've taken my children's safety net, my family's safety net, and said, I believe in this town. That's what I did. Now, what I need to do is I need this town to rise up as a community. You know, we do have wonderful things. We have the Hope House. We have Shalom. We have all of these things that are great. But, you know, Shalom, we caught them dumping them at my front door or my side door last year, pulling up a bus, letting 50 of them out, coming in my coffee shop with their backpacks, spending the entire day. I had to go tell them to stop. It's not good for business. I'm compassionate, but where does my business sense start and my compassion end? I won't keep it up this way. There's just no way I can survive. You know, I've had customers say, we love you, we love your shop, we love your staff, but we're not coming downtown anymore because every time we get out of our car, asking for money, asking for cigarettes, asking for gift cards, asking for food. We can't do it anymore. This is what killed us to begin with. And we've worked way too hard to go backwards. Absolutely can't do it. Now, I don't know what the solution is, you know, but what we do have to do is come together as a community and figure out what we can do, because it's not just a downtown program. It's a Middletown program. I mean, Middletown is suffering. They're leaving downtown and they're going into our neighborhoods. We need to come up with some sort of collaborative effort to have a 24-hour center put in. I didn't realize what the Hope House was doing, but that's not what they're currently doing now, you know. So they're doing it in Cincinnati. They have shelters 24 hours a day. They don't care if you're on drugs. They don't care if you're an alcoholic. They don't care if you have warrants for your arrest. Everyone is welcomed. They have showers. They have laundry facilities. They have mental health services. They have all kinds of services. The point is, they don't care where you came from. They don't care what your problems are. They're here to help you. They have an 86% success rate at making these people functioning members of society. We can't help everybody. We know that. We are a compassionate community. So what I'm saying is we've got to put our heads together and come up with solutions. But as of right now, we have got to address our safety issues. I'm afraid for my staff. When I opened 4.5 years ago, I was there at 4 o'clock in the morning by myself, sitting on the back patio, by myself, not even a care in the world that something would be wrong. I wouldn't do it today. I don't even like coming in at 5:30 in the morning alone, just like my manager does it. So, you know, I come to you, not only as a business owner, but as a Middletown resident, most importantly, as a mom who's raising 2 boys in this community. You know, we have done as much as we can on the front lines, right? We are trying to manage the unmanageable. But I come to you as our leaders to ask you to help us, you know, to the best of your ability. We're here to help. I'll sit on any task force you want me to sit on to help, but I need you to get in the game.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right, the next card I have this evening is from Miss Amy Ray. Good evening. Would you get your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Amy Ray. I live at 4818 Roosevelt Avenue. I own Gypsy Soul Healing located inside the Living Tree at 1040 Central Avenue. As you know, we are here to discuss the recent increase in homelessness in our city. I was blown away to learn when other cities are busing their homeless to our city. They've taken the not in my backyard approach by cattle dumping their tent cities in Middletown. It is inhumane because once these people are outside of their city limits, they don't care what happens to them. I've spoken to several of these people in question and have been personally told directly from their mouths they have been sent here on travel vouchers from Hamilton. Vouchers? Are you kidding me? Homelessness is not a stranger to Middletown. We have our own issues, but these issues we are experiencing aren't with our hometown homeless regulars. They are with new backpack-wearing, on stolen bike drug addicts who are aggressive, threatening, and entitled. And as downtown Middletown business owners, we are mad as hell. I remember being so excited 18 months ago when I was given the opportunity to join downtown Middletown as a business owner. I was born and raised in Middletown and take so much pride in my hometown. To see downtown blossom from the stark gray part of town I remember as a kid is an excitement I can't quite describe. However, if we continue to allow this appalling, inhumane dumping, it will continue to unravel everything we have done. Not only that, but without a doubt, it will unravel the positive image of the city as a whole we try to promote and maintain. There is zero reason for us as business owners, nor especially our customers, to feel unsafe, not just coming downtown, but also while putting groceries in the car at Kroger or just a simple run to Myers. I am very compassionate. I am often told by others I am naive when it comes to the homeless. I choose to see the human being in them. I let them tell me their story. I give them food, money. I even give them resources on the regular. I show them the basic decency of respect. However, with these cattle dumps, these people are affecting my customers, my clients, and lastly, my livelihood in a negative way, and I am losing my patience and becoming increasingly frustrated. I've had a man I did not recognize come into the shop who told me he was a vampire sent here to protect me. He proceeded to tell me he was on acid before he then decided to undress in the shop. A man on acid decided to get naked in the shop. Just last week, a customer who is also a 16-year-old student at Mid-State across the street told me when she left the Living Tree the week prior, a homeless man followed her and harassed her all the way to UDF. She stayed at UDF for a while, and then she ran the rest of the way home. Not only did this man induce panic in a paying customer, but when she left the shop, he followed a child. A child. Think about that. Let that sink in. These are just a few of the many experiences I've experienced downtown. I have gone from feeling safe and having to put a safety app, Noonlight, put on my phone that calls the cops and gives them my location if I feel like I'm in danger. I now carry pepper spray, and there is a taser by the register. I'm a spiritual shop. Why is that happening? As Gypsy Soul Healing and the Living Tree business expand, our customers have requested longer evening hours. With the current state of affairs, that's just not a possibility. We love our downtown community, and will do whatever we can to protect our progress, its future, and our customers. This is what I'm doing to protect my customers. What are you doing to protect Middletown? And I also have a list of solutions that I came up with, since you guys are very solution-oriented, as you should be. So I'd like you to pass that around. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming down this evening. All right, next card I have this evening is from Miss Renee Tice. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Renee Tice. I live at 1728 Sheffield Street in Middletown. I am the owner of the Living Tree Spiritual Center and Store at 1040 Central Avenue and the manager of Triple Moon Coffee located at 1100 Central Avenue. I was born in Middletown and have lived and worked in this city most of my life. I fell in love with our downtown and the excitement of revitalization efforts 4 years ago, and that enthusiasm grew into becoming the owner of one business, the manager of another, a volunteer, and a supportive cheerleader for our downtown family and our overall vision. Despite the various challenges we faced along the way, I have never felt discouraged or unsafe until now. I arrive downtown at 5:30 a.m. almost every day of the week to open Triple Moon Coffee, and I have done so for the past 3 years. Until the last few months, there was rarely another person to be seen on the street at that hour, and if it was one of our normal, recognized homeless people who give us absolutely no problems at Triple Moon or at the Living Tree. I have never once felt that my safety was compromised. At this point in time, I am reluctant to even exit my car and to open the doors of Triple Moon because there are so many unfamiliar people just standing or biking on the sidewalks, sitting against our building, asking our approaching customers for money and cigarettes. Customers who have voiced their safety concerns to me and to Heather, and their reluctance at this point to come downtown at all. We are losing business and on the verge of destroying the progress we've made in changing the reputation of our downtown by continuing to allow these disrespectful and unpredictable people to loiter freely around our establishments. I once felt a reasonable level of safety for myself and my teenage daughter to move around downtown freely, but due to recent experiences has completely changed. While I am understandably concerned about this situation from a business owner's standpoint, as our livelihoods are obviously dependent on the reputation and success of our downtown, I am seriously worried about the general safety of the residents of Middletown in general. In our neighborhoods, our grocery store parking lots, at our gas stations, for my family and for your family all over this city. I am concerned about the safety of the children who attend Mid-State, as I have received numerous reports of them being followed, harassed, and even sexually propositioned on our streets by aggressive and demanding transient men. I'm concerned for the safety of our staff at Triple Moon and for those of us at the Living Tree, mostly young women who are regularly scared by aggressive and demanding men in the evenings, so much that they often have to call the PD for assistance. Those of us who previously felt safe working and socializing downtown after dark are scared and reluctant to even come down and visit the downtown businesses after dark. This onslaught of unpredictable, unknown people are stealing, harassing, sleeping, and even defecating in our yards and on our streets, and they are making our city overall a more dangerous place to live and work. And we must not stand for this any longer. I am compassionate but frustrated and scared at this point. We demand action be taken now by our city council and our entrusted elected leaders toward the development and implementation of both short and long-term solutions for this escalating crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming down this evening. All right, next card I have this evening is from Ms. Courtney Gross. Ms. Gross. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Courtney Gross, 2809 Franklin, Madison. I work at Triple Moon Coffee Company and The Square downtown and now Don's. I've had really bad experiences with some of the more manic homeless downtown. There's this one in particular who has seemed to follow me from place to place. He's paced in front of my car. He's been aggressive in the coffee shop, and it's pretty scary, you know? Be like downtown anymore by myself. That's about it.
Well, thanks for coming down and sharing that information. All right. Next card I have this evening is from Mr. Jeff Payne.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Get your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Jeff Payne, Executive Director of Downtown Middletown, Inc., 1050 Central Avenue. I have just sort of begun to be aware of this situation. As you can see, it's really a great concern among the businesses here. And I can just report to you that the board has not yet had a chance to meet to really kind of go through and discuss this. But I do have kind of three immediate observations, and I'll just leave those there for you to ponder. First of all, it seems to me that this is an interjurisdictional problem. It's based on what has been shared with me from among the businesses, and I'm sure that you'll get some additional reinforcements of those things as people come up to share. The second thing is that this is something we really need to address immediately. It begins to jeopardize our downtown image. We are trying to build downtown so that it's a place where people are safe, it's inviting. We want our visitors to want to come, not only for just the major events, but at all times that the businesses are open. And so this really goes against our efforts to transform downtown. And then the third is that I'm going to be recommending to our board that we meet with the businesses to work on some immediate strategies to address these issues. However, we need to understand that that's only going to be limited because I think the problem that we're facing, or the challenge that we're facing, is much greater than what DMI can do as an organization. Thank you.
Thanks for coming down this evening. All right. See, the next card I have this evening is from Miss Monica Nenny. Miss Nenny. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Monica Nenny. I reside at 7 North Highview here in Middletown, and I am the owner of West Central Wine in downtown Middletown and the Gold Beret Boutique, located at 1120 and 1118 Central Avenue. And I'll keep it brief because you all have heard from a lot of my neighbors here tonight about the experience that we have downtown dealing with this situation firsthand. Before I moved back to Middletown to establish my business and move back here, I lived in Over the Rhine. I was a 20-something-year-old woman who walked freely around in downtown at certain hours of the night. I mean, I always had my mace on me, right? But I never had to use it. Most of the homeless that I saw, even in that community, were people who I knew, who I had seen before, and who knew who I was. And I think when I first opened West Central Wine in downtown Middletown, I felt that same sort of comfort, that I knew my surroundings, and I didn't have to feel unsafe. And I staked my reputation on telling people that downtown Middletown was safe, that it was okay to come down here, it was okay to spend your money in downtown Middletown and support the effort that we were making to revitalize our downtown. You know, I think looking through Doug's presentation, he notes that there are a lot of cities who deal with homelessness issues. Those are all really big cities that were listed in those headlines, and we're a pretty small city. I think our issues are maybe a little bit different. We also were mentioned a SID. I would love to be able to use this situation and this influence to create a special improvement district that can help us as downtown businesses afford to have the safety we need to make sure that our customers and our neighbors are safe in our community. We've got to come up with some solutions that will help people feel better about this. Otherwise, we run the risk of losing all of the progress that's been made, all the investment that we've made in our downtown and in our city. So as a business owner, as an employer of women who close the bar late at night and have to worry about their own safety, I implore you to come up with some creative solutions for how we can help our people here feel more safe. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down this evening. Next card I have this evening is from Mr. Josh Lawball. Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Josh Lawball.
Okay, that's not a Dora cup, is it?
That is not a Dora cup.
Just
coffee
checking.
in here.
You are in the district, though.
Right, we are in the district. Come on down. Mr. Atkins, council. It's been a while. It's good to see you guys. Like I said, 220 Aberdeen is my residence. I'm the co-founder, brewmaster, lab tech, plumber of brewing company, you name it, whatever. Like a lot of these people here, I have a lot. My wife has a lot invested in downtown. We're here because we want to be. It's not easy. It's very difficult. So we're here out of a passion. I got just a couple points. I want to share a few anecdotes, if you will, and we'll leave it at that. Early this summer, down at the brewery, it was back in about May or June. It was in the afternoon. I had an employee there working. I was inside with him, and I was busy cleaning a fermenter, and he had gone outside. And what had happened essentially was a Butler County deputy had dropped an individual off in front of the brewery. I don't know whether he had mental issues or he was on drugs. I don't know. I do know he had a knife on him. I do know he was belligerent. I do know that he harassed the hell out of my employee. While this went on, I came out, dealt with it. We moved inside. The deputy remained there and then drove off. To me, this highlights the disregard that people have for Middletown who aren't from Middletown. Did some follow-up. This individual, who was the deputy, is not from Middletown. And I do want to give some credit to Chief Dwyer. He did follow up with me, so I do want to give some credit to Butler County on that. But I think, this speaks to a point that, and Mr. Atkins, I love you to death. I think you're doing a great job. I do want to take a slight exception, though, with your report. I don't think what we're seeing is just some general trend, that there's homelessness all over and Middletown seeing it. The second story I want to share, I was leaving my house about 3:30 in the morning. I do get to the brewery really early before I go into my other job. And I was driving at Milton and Kenwood, stopped at the stop sign. This woman comes out. Again, don't know what her situation was. Don't know if she was on drugs. Don't know if she was mental. She came up to my car. I had the window down. And she's frantic, telling me, she said, they just dropped me off here. She said, I'm from Mason. She said, and they just took and dropped me off here. I need a ride back to Mason. Can you give me a ride back to Mason? And she's, going on frantically. And so how did this woman get there? Again, a gentleman made a point earlier, if, she wasn't coming here for a service, she had been dumped here. The second point I want to make is that throughout the duration of our own and our business, Middletown Police has done one hell of a job in terms of caring and responding to the issues that we've had at the brewery. They take ownership. I know a lot of them are from here, and I have a lot of respect for that. And I know as much as anybody, their resources are limited. The other thing I want to mention about the police, and I hope I don't put him, I'm not trying to out him, but what Chief Muterspaw put out on social media was exactly right. And I stand behind him as a business owner and as a citizen in saying what he said, because I think what he said was exactly right. And I want to encourage you as a council, and I'd like to encourage Mr. Atkins to stand behind him. I know that's probably a little bit of a different format for him to speak out like that, but somebody needs to say it, and he did a good job. So more or less, I'm coming down here not to complain, not to tell you that I have a solution. I have actually been in your chair. I know there's no easy solutions, but what I do want to ask you to do is to stand up for the citizens of the city of Middletown. Speak up, call these other communities out. If you can do it through a backdoor approach, great. If we got to go public with it, then you should do that. So you have my support as a citizen, as a business owner to do that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wawa. The next card I have is from Nicole Condry. Good evening, Ms. Condry. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Nicole Condry. My address is 1407 Wren Street.
Good evening.
And this is Via, but she doesn't plan to talk.
No.
Yeah. First of all, I have to say that I'm actually proud of Middletown. We have all these homeless coming here. Why? Because we've done a great job taking care of them. And whether that's the city doing it or individual organizations like Hope House, it's something to be really proud of. So, I think we should all be proud of that here and take credit as a community for that. And that's exactly why we're getting dumped on, though, right? We're doing such a great job. So I think the thing that's the problem, though, is we have to put our own oxygen mask on first. We can't, as much as we want to help all these other people, and there's great reasons to help them, if we don't take care of our own first, then we won't be able to help others. So we do have to fix this problem. And I have some ideas. I really appreciate the picture that everyone has given, because that really does help. I think we can all now recognize that this is an actual problem that we should be focused on. So some of the things that I've done a lot of research on this topic, and it is an epidemic in the United States right now to be dumping homeless onto cities who are doing a good job of taking care of them. This is something that's going on. So I will acknowledge the fact that that is going on, and Middletown is one of those cities. Now, it's happening to a lot larger cities, though, because mostly the larger cities are the ones who are taking care of them. So as a small city, again, we should be proud that we're doing the right thing, taking care of them. So here's my ideas. First of all, perhaps it's the perfect day to start honoring the Israel Proclamation of improving our relationships with others. So when it comes to the discussions, I heard Doug say, when we're aware of a particular jurisdiction has dropped someone off, okay, we need to become more aware. And I think that starts with developing our relationships with these other cities around us. I feel like our relationship should be so strong with these cities that we have ingrained trust that they would tell us that they're doing that. And I don't know how our relationships are on the leadership level, but I would hope that we can communicate well on that level and trust each other that those communications can happen. And I've worked for the United States government for a long time. I also know if someone's giving a voucher for something or there's a police officer dropping someone else off, there's documentation somewhere for that. If there's a voucher to be had, somebody's writing it down and making it accountable. So those discussions can be had, and there's somewhere where that's being documented. And then I highly recommend, if you do have a discussion with another city, that it is documented somewhere other than a phone call, because we have to be able to list those things so that we can present them somewhere else later. And then when it comes down to funding, right, everything's about money, and we need ways to deal with our economic situation here. So there's a couple of things that I've seen other cities propose or have actually worked. One of them is charging other cities for dropping people off in our own city. And so that's where this documentation comes in of, how many times it's been done and having that strong relationship with other cities that we can communicate about it. So, that stance is saying, hey, we'll take them, but we need some money so we can put it into our city for other reasons, maybe put more cops on the street, whatever we want to do with that, but that's one option. Another one I've seen is to propose state legislature that transportation funds would be taken away if cities aren't doing a set level of taking care of their homeless. So whatever that might be, that there's certain things that cities have to meet certain marks to take care of the homeless, and if they don't, that their transportation funds can be reduced in some fashion. So those are things I've seen that's been happening and working, and I think that maybe there would be great options for Middletown. So thank you everyone for sharing everything that you're doing, and keep it up.
Thank you for coming down this evening. All right, next could I have the students from Miss Brandy Slavens? Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
Brandy Slavens, 2596 East State Route 73, Waynesville, working at Access Counseling Services, 4464 South Dixie Highway, Middletown, and 7 other locations, all in Middletown. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Obviously, homelessness is something that's very close to us. We have therapists and case managers that work in the Hope House and have for a number of years now, and we also work with doing street outreach for the homeless that are on our streets right now. There's some information that you may find very helpful in this discussion. The state requires homeless shelters to do a point of time count on homeless in their city every year. And for Middletown, we're running between 200 and 250 every year. And that's not really changed on a continuous basis. Hamilton's running about 350 to 500. Middletown has 1 homeless shelter. Hamilton has 4. Warren County has 2 homeless shelters. And if you're doing the math, that means Butler County has 5. So when we talk about resources, we as a county are very resource heavy, but what's happening is that the resources are becoming more tight because of budget cuts that are coming and that have came, that are the services that we were once able to offer are continuously being cut. The homeless situation isn't just something that Middletown alone has been facing. I know that you all are probably very familiar with the commissioners Butler County Commissioners in some of the meetings that they've been having regarding the homelessness and moving homeless camps down in Hamilton. So through those discussions, the Butler County Mental Health and Drug and Addiction Services Boards have decided that they were going to start looking into what a crisis intervention facility would look like. And it very specifically would address some of the issues that your businesses have brought to light tonight. The crisis interventions, Pastor Bailey, who's here, as well as myself and our CEO, Deanna Proctor, and Kathy Becker, another employee, went with the board and we traveled to Columbus. And we looked at 2 immediate crisis shelters in Columbus over a period, I believe, of the last 2 months. And as we're looking at those crisis shelters, we're noticing and being able to take different facets from those shelters that may or may not work in Middletown, but going ahead and starting to lay the groundwork for that and seeing what is something that we could actually make function and be really pliable for us. So in that, we have Access Counseling started to look at developing a solid business plan for what we're calling a community engagement center. A community engagement center would mean that the businesses that are dealing with folks that are coming in during the day. I spent a day yesterday at Triple Moon, so I saw them that are downtown and work, and I don't want to say pestering, that's such a bad word, but having active communication with the folks that are down there and patrons. They would be eligible to go to this community engagement center. It would have washer and dryers. It would have a kitchen. It will have a shower for them to shower. It would have the ability for them to have an address so they can get a job. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to get a job without having an address or having taken a shower or having shoes on your feet. Those things that are all imperative to be able to have a tax-paying citizen. But that's something that we're willing to do. That's something that we can get up and running within a month with the right building. Hint, hint, right building, we can make that happen because the business plan is already there. But it's also something else that I really think that is important for us to discuss today, and I think the judge would back this statement 120%, is in the past year, as we've seen the homelessness increase, our drug use and preferable drug use has also changed. We went from heroin to methamphetamine. So when our folks are talking about, we're not just dealing with our local homeless anymore, what we're dealing with is very angry, belligerent people. That's what happens when you're using methamphetamine, and it changes the chemistry of your brain. So someone who may have at one point been a very reasonable tax-paying citizen now is going to appear to be incredibly mentally ill and stripped down naked in the front of our local businesses. The methamphetamine problem that we have is only going to continue to get worse until we address that as well as the homelessness. And I know it seems like, I work for mental health and substance abuse agency, so it seems like just a platform that I would stand on. But nobody wants to say that they're afraid to go to the downtown coffee shop because the local meth dealer is standing outside. That's a very scary place for any resident to be. And I know we're seeing the increase in the methamphetamine in the court, and we're seeing it on the streets. We're seeing it even within some of the kids. And what I will say is the chance of recovery for meth addicts is increasingly lower than those of heroin addicts. Because with heroin addicts, we have medication-assisted treatment that we can use. With methamphetamine, we don't. So we're talking about people that are going to have symptoms of active psychosis on a regular basis until they're able to get treatment. So our solution as an agency is a community engagement center, and we'd love to have the opportunity to discuss that further with council at another time.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you coming out this evening. All right. Let's see. Next card I have is from Mr. Gabriel. Can't make it out there. Shanley. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you. But get your name and address for the record, please.
Gabriel Shaneline from 121 South Main Street. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. Heard a lot of good points from people tonight, and I've been scribbling furiously, so hopefully I can keep it together. My wife and I moved here in 2016 to a house on South Main. We immediately fell in love with this community. We love this town, but that sentiment has unfortunately been dwindling a little bit lately. I work from home, so I have a front row seat at most hours of the day to what's going on in our neighborhood in South Main, at least. And about 2 years ago, I'd say, we noticed definite increase in traffic of folks we don't recognize in our neighborhood. The swelling of this traffic coincided with disturbances as well as crimes committed against us. Trespassing, theft, littering, loitering, fighting, yelling outside at wee hours of the morning. For example, we had a repeat offender trespasser. We knew the guy. He came through our yard repeatedly after telling him not to come around here anymore. He was apprehended. I know this because I apprehended him myself. And the cops showed up and said we'll take it from here. My wife and I followed up with police records, and a few days later, no charges were filed. Another example was just when we were discussing this the other day in a Facebook group. 2 people, a man and a woman, went by on a bike and a familiar backpack outside of our house, screaming and yelling. She said the guy had assaulted her. They were in each other's faces. I saw where they went. I followed them despite the cops telling me not to. When the cops showed up about 15 minutes later, he assured me that no crime had been committed because the victim was not there to describe it. And I would say to that, just because you didn't see it doesn't mean a crime didn't happen. So I said, like Nicole said, data is important. Getting this stuff on record, very important. When I said, I at least want to report an incident, he said, that's fine, but I guarantee you nothing's going to happen. Not the attitude I want to see in my law enforcement officers. I want to clarify, I love our police. They do a great job here, but the responses, in my experience, to this issue have not been optimal. I would challenge the notion we heard earlier that I should address a stranger stalking my wife, staring at her in the window on our porch. I would challenge the notion that I should address that issue with systemic resolutions. Something needs to be done at the moment. I would also challenge the notion that nothing operational could be done about this, as we heard from our city manager earlier. I don't think it's unreasonable for the members of this community to, when we feel passionately about such an issue, to expect our leaders to, if need be, think a little harder, think a little more creatively. I appreciate everybody coming out, speaking tonight, appreciate our leadership here, and I'm optimistic that we'll take care of this issue together. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, and I think the last card I have this evening is from Miss Jamie Beth Lucanis. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
We're Jamie Beth Lucanis, 214 South Main. More of us. Thank you for having us all tonight and listening to our concerns. All of us, residents and business owners, have invested money in this community. We love it very much. My husband, who you heard from earlier, and I moved here 3 years ago because Middletown's a great investment. We got a fantastic property for a really reasonable amount of money. And so 3 years ago when we came down, it was so exciting, just over the years of all the businesses opening, and I think how many, 30 or something in 2 years. So it's very impressive. There's been lots of great work done here by the business owners. I mean, just it's amazing, truly, for this town, all the work that's happened here, as well as with our leaders. So that's why we're all concerned. We've all worked together, the community, hand in hand with the business owners, hand in hand with the leaders. We all volunteer. We're all on boards. We care about this community. If we didn't care about this community, we would all leave, right? That's not what we want. We want to be here. We want to find solutions. We want to partner together. We'd like to see a homelessness task force. We feel like it'd be really cool to look at what is truly the issue. We all have our theories, clearly, but I think even a market study, ask folks, figure out where they're from, if we can pinpoint sort of where these things are coming from, because it's really a shame. All of this work has happened 20 years in the making. And then, finally we got to the point of this last couple of years of seeing all of this work attracting people from out of town and people back to their hometowns. And, I've spent time in 10 years in Charlotte, 10 years in Cincinnati before I fell in love with a Butler County boy. But it's really important to us in our community that we all partner together. We want all of these people to have services. That's not what we're saying. We know a lot of the homeless and have for years. And just like Heather said, she offers those people kindness all of the time. But lately, we've seen this influx of backpackers in our neighborhood. And as a woman, it's scary, I have to admit. And I have a 14-year-old daughter. So that's something we're concerned about. She's always in the past been able to be on her bike outside, and we're so excited this downtown neighborhood just continued in the past to get better. So the backpackers that are coming from out of town, they're definitely not locals. And I'm from out of town, so I understand, like, we want to give everybody a chance, but it's the transient population that we are concerned about, that influx of folks that have no investment in this community. And specifically, those backpackers are selling drugs to our homeless population. And so this is not good. I'm out just like everybody, selling Middletown. Look, everybody come to Middletown. Everybody come be my neighbor. Come work here. Come live here. Come play here. And so then we have folks like Mika. I don't know if she's here tonight, but Jeremy and I worked with a group of South Main folks. We lead the neighborhood historic district, 90 homeowners that are attached to this downtown right here. We live 2 blocks away. And they bought a house, moved here from Dayton, had their business in Middletown. And one day she was newly in her home. Somebody just opens her door and walks in recently. And so that's not okay. Like, I understand we live downtown, sure. I worked in OTR for many years. I understand downtowns. But at the same time, this is something different. So I think we just need to look at what the problem is, and then we really need a partnership of everybody, because you guys can't do the work alone, right? You need residents. Clearly, we're interested. You need business owners. They're interested. So I think it's a good time to come together to really look at the problem at hand. And I understand that there's lack of resources. Everybody knows that. There's 5 or 6 policemen per shift for a city of 60,000 people. It's ridiculous. So it's obviously lack of resources. So we, of all people, have no business accepting other people's problems. We are trying to deal with our own communities and improve our own neighborhoods. And, it's exciting when the police can actually go out and do something positive, right? And not deal with the problem. They can be in Heather's coffee shop doing coffee with the cops and talk to the community and talking about, positives. So that's where we want to be. We want to be on the up. Okay. And we are definitely not complaining. We're really just bringing our concerns to you guys because we love to live here and we love to work here and we love to play here. So we just want to continue to be proactive in protecting our community. So we have lost already 1 business owner. So somebody said 35 earlier, it's actually 34 now, because of the homelessness that did push somebody away. And so I don't want to see that. We've worked so hard for these businesses. And also it's an amenity. It's part of why we're here. We can walk to a brewery. We can walk to a wine bar. We can walk to a multiple high-end restaurants, So anyway, thank you for listening to us and protecting our investments. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming out this evening. Okay, and that's all the comment cards I've received this evening. In the interest of time, I think we'll probably take a brief recess, if that's okay with everybody. Time for a 5-minute recess.
Hear the mayor.
I'll do that, yes, I'll do that. We'll come back at about, call it 6:55, give everybody a few minutes to refresh and get set. Thank you. All right. All right, good evening. I'd like to bring our meeting back to order from our brief recess. Here we just completed the citizens' comments, and we'll move on to the city manager reports regarding our public safety non-public safety budgets. Mr. Atkins?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council again. You received the budget books today. In past years, you've received it either the 30th or the 1st of October, and generally the way the calendar hits, you've got a week or so to look at it before the presentation. The way the calendar hits this time, you'll get the non-public safety presentation tonight. You will get the public safety presentation for the budget on October 15th. First reading for the budget for passage would be November 5th. Second reading on November 19th. That being said, we are open for questions anytime. I'll go through stuff tonight you haven't seen before, so as you get a chance to go through it and you get into the details as you have questions, please let us know. We have always tried to make it that if one council member asks a question, we try to get the right answer and then make sure everybody gets the same answer so that we all are hearing the same thing. So we will go ahead and get started. Significant changes for the 2020 budget. We do have a 2.5% cost of living raise for employees. Because of that, there will be no performance-based compensation program for 2020. Income tax revenue is projected to increase 3.5% over the 2019 budget. However, we are projecting a 2.5% decrease to what our actual 2019 year-end revenues are. We never put the construction revenue in the budget. We make that as an extra each year, and then as it comes in, we will go ahead and add it back into the next year's budget so that we are never caught short. The city's healthcare costs are expected to increase 6%. That has been fairly consistent over the last 3 or 4 years. The most interesting odd thing in this year's budget is instead of 26, you have 27 biweekly pays, and that's simply a matter of how the calendar hits. But that represents $745,000 just in the general fund by that last extra 2 weeks of pay in the budget. We are, when you get to the fire and police at the next meeting, you'll see the beginning stages of a community paramedicine program. We are also adding 2 dedicated traffic officers to police to address some of the earlier comments from council on traffic problems. Again, as we have done before, we always talk about deficit spending, and I've each year remind you that while it looks that way, that's really never the case. We make sure we have money in the bank before we then put it back on the street. We always try to be conservative on revenues and budget every possible expenditure to have the most time to be able to react if there's a downturn in the economy. If you look again at the 2018 budget, when we made that presentation, we expected the 2017 to end at 5.3 million, and we always again take you down to 15%, which meant, again, we expected the budget to be down at 4.5 million. As we get to the beginning of 2019, the actual end, while we budgeted at 4.5, was actually at 6.5, which means you were 2 million over the budget as we got to the end of 2018. We turn around and roll that back in, put it back on the street into the priorities that you've set for us. When we made this presentation last year, we told you we expected the 2019 year-end budgeted for the general fund to end at 4.7 million. As of 8/31, you're sitting at 7.8 million, which means again you're 3 million over the budget. And again, that's always on a very conservative basis so that we can continue to react after the Great Recession. We don't get too far out of the line. 2020 is exactly the same. You're at 7.8 million. We're going to budget you down to 15.1%. Again, when you look at the increase in the non-public safety personnel costs, when you drop out that biweekly extra pay, your payroll is going up 0.1%. When you look at the 2020 increase in personnel costs for public safety, and you back out the time, it gets down to 4%. Again, so you're not seeing a whole lot of massive changes going on in this year's budget. It's more of the same, laid into, I hope, the priorities that you gave us earlier in the year. There is no water rate increase scheduled for 2020. There is a 10% sewer rate increase scheduled for 2020 that is consistent with their long-term control plan projections. We are laying in a solid waste increase of 50 cents in 2020 per month due to the increase in the Rumpke contract, no increase in the stormwater fee. And again, through August 31st, we can confirm that we had received $608,000 in one-time construction revenue income tax through the end of August. So again, we don't budget those, where those are always extra and can be added on after they're in the bank and we know what we've gotten. The employee benefit fund update, as you're aware, we took about $1.5 million out of that a couple years ago. We were able to pay back $500,000 last year. The main point of this slide is to tell you that at the end of 2019, we expect the fund to be at a $1 million balance in the positive, which means we can turn around and pay back again our $500,000 that we were projected to pay for 2019. Knowing what we know now, again for the 2020 budget, we should again be able to pay the final payment in the 2020 budget, that $500,000, and then we will start building that reserve back up finally to get that back so it's in a healthy fund again. General fund analysis, when you take out that bi-weekly payroll, is going up a total of 6%. You can see the different departments. I did not cover much in city council because other than the extra pay, there were effectively no changes. It's the same expenses that you guys have always had. So I went on with city manager. When you take out the bi-weekly pay, it's going down 12.2%. The main reason for that is we had money in this year's budget for the transportation plan. That's already going to be expended this year, which means I won't need it for next year. That's why that's come back out and my budget has gone down. We will continue work on restructuring the fire stations and staffing in 2020. We will start looking at the long-term housing policy and implementation to strengthen our housing stock. We have another heroin summit coming up here in the next week or so. That is shifting from a heroin summit to an addiction summit. Again, to deal with some of the things the judge and I are seeing with methamphetamine increase, that it's just a different animal and it's going to require a different approach. We continue to work on getting that stuff off of our street. You should have a master plan to approve, I hope, before the end of the year, which means there will be hopefully some master plan priorities starting to come together in 2020 as well. Finance is going up 6.4% without the bi-week. When you take out the bi-weekly extra pay, they are doing some pretty cool things. They are implementing a new portal for our utility customers that will allow them to auto pay, get text pay reminders. It'll change their ability. It'll be a smart app, just like any other things you got. We're finally getting into the 21st century. We had a very, very rudimentary online taxing option that frankly didn't work well this year. We have a much improved online tax filing that we should have available for our residents next year. We'll continue to move on with our different budget presentation awards, and we are now working on auto pay options for vendor payments in an effort to reduce checks and mailing in that response through finance. Information systems is going up just to 1.2%. They are working on a telephone system upgrade, network infrastructure for a high-speed wireless network to link our locations. We have a few fire stations and access areas outside of the building that are not well connected for internet access. We are upgrading the public works software, and we will be continuing to install security cameras both in the building and in other key high crime areas. Economic development has seen one of the biggest increases. You'll see you have money in the economic development proper budget for Oakland Phase 3 and paperboard brownfield work to start getting the paperboard site ready to go. The communications budget is going up by $50,000 for the increase in recreation that council had talked about earlier in the year. There's also additional money to upgrade our city brand, logo, video, photography, and websites and updated city signs. The planning budget is going up, and that is your CLG position that we talked about earlier in the year. That will be coming on in January, and you'll have $71,000 to cover just that position. Airport's going to be one of the weirder budgets you see for the year. It's going up 147% because we're taking over the fixed base operation. That is all covered by fuel sales and things that revenues that we will start book banking as we go forward in that. You'll see a 73% reduction in airport capital. This year we had over $2 million in projects. I think we talked earlier that they're about 600,000. I think you guys passed those in the last meeting or so for runway markings, and we're starting work on the Lime Pond. So we have 630,000 in capital, but it will be a substantial decrease from the projects that we already have going on this year. Administrative services, that's formerly community revitalization. You have money in there for the first time to look at implementing the industrial buffer as we have implemented with our new housing policy. There's $70,000 in there as those properties become available to allow us to start snagging those and removing those around our industrial areas that we've identified in the new housing plan. Community development has gone to police as of last year. Community center is flat. Law, HR, and building inspection, again, as a total department, are only 4.2% up. Building maintenance, again, not tremendous changes. We will finally finish the utilization of the land bank demolition grant. I know the land bank is looking at new opportunities and where they're going to take that organization next. It does give us some opportunities if they expand the use of the land bank to work on our housing policy, and the Oakland taking possession of some of those properties as they become available. We will work again on the implementation of the new housing policy. You do have an extra person there in the administrative office's budget for starting to handle, as we get into taking property and getting Oakland and using land bank and all this, you're going to have things coming in and out of our title. You're going to have loans theoretically from a housing fund down the road that we're putting together. You're going to need somebody to keep all that together, both legally and then the operations, all the applications, all the vetting, all the stuff that needs to be done. There is a person in next year's budget to start handling all of that. We do also add an HR manager. As you're aware, Kay has been with us for over 40 years. Karen retired earlier this year. We lost over 80 years of HR experience in the organization. Those two ladies did part-time. Frankly, we've been lucky for about the last 8 to 10 years that those two ladies handled part-time what it's now probably going to take 3 people full-time to do, honestly, and that's just from their 40 years of expertise and experience. We do have a HR manager coming on to make sure that that transition goes off and we are handling everything that we are supposed to be handling. Public Works, engineering, street lighting, and park maintenance, when you back out the extra biweekly payment, is only going up 2.1% total. Street lighting, we will be implementing the first phase of the LED conversion. Parks maintenance and engineering are fairly flat when you back out the biweekly pay. We will finish the Sunset Park project hopefully at the end of this year. Some of the plantings may be next spring when the weather turns. We are now working on the design process for Lakeside Stormwater. That's our second project, which will redirect stormwater into the hydraulic canal and start dealing with that. As that goes on, we will initiate the beginning planning for our third project, which is the downtown storage basin. We'll start lining that up to coincide with the OKI project to redo Central Avenue in 2022. But the idea is to take all of the downtown, take it into a big storage basin, and then again slowly release it to the water treatment plant so that it can be handled without a sewer overflow. We'll also continue to work on our waste system asset management program, continue to work on traffic calming measures throughout the city as our transportation and our downtown information becomes available, continue to convert our LED traffic signals, update additional intersection with new controls, and we are putting out the RFP for a new master plan for the parks in the next couple weeks. I think I sent you the date. I don't have it in front of me, but that process will be going on in 2020. Will involve both council, the residents, and park board, and it will include a feasibility study or a rec center, aqua center type facility in Middletown to give us an idea of what that might generate and what gap, if any, there might be both in building it and operating it each year. Local street paving has $3.7 million in the budget for 2020. I'm not going to read that whole slide to you, but these are the streets that have been selected for repaving, both by our contractors and by the city crew. We will also be doing the University Bridge project for another $2 million. Lot going on. And finally, our revenues are at a place where we can afford to ramp up both paving and still do the bridge at the same time. Capital projects, again, I won't go into. You've got a lot of paving. We will continue another 75,000 gateway enhancements. We did last year, or this year rather, the area in front of Kettering Health Network, to add the gateway look to it. We will continue probably to work our way up 122 towards downtown. We'll do another section for $75,000. We are continuing to work on getting the pavers done. I've not talked to Scott in a while about timing on what he has there. You've got, of course, the University Bridge, the OKI project for the bike path to Franklin that's been sitting on the books for 4 years will come into play next year with our partners in Franklin. We'll finally finish that last section. Water facility upgrades, GIS improvements. Long-term control plan. Again, this is going to get into finishing Sunset and starting the Lakeside projects. Stormwater, typical updates, and on from there. The last thing we've got is just a general, and again, you can see without the without the extra bi-weekly payroll, city income tax is going up 2.6%. Auto and gas tax will go up $1 million, but that's because of the new gas tax initiated by the state legislature this year. That money will turn around and go right back into 3.7% or $3.7 million that you have budgeted for paving. Health, the health department regulations have changed in Ohio, requiring that a full-time director and a full-time nursing person be on staff. We will take care of that in this budget. We are also also adding a new health clerk position. We are using that, and we're using the model that we've used for our quick response team for our heroin. We are going to put a social worker with a health worker with a paramedic to start our community paramedicine program. One of the advantages is the health department does have the ability to work with Medicaid, which means we can bill for some of these things as we go out. I'll get in more to the community paramedicine program at the next meeting as we go through the public safety budget. But the idea is to take these chronic uses of our EMS service and start finding better paths to get them primary health care and other things that would allow them to not use both the emergency room and our EMS services quite so well. Nuisance abatement is flat, and at the sewer fund and them are all okay. Judge, you want to talk for 3 to 5 minutes on your budget? I'll turn the floor over to Judge Sharon for the municipal court budget.
Good evening, Your Honor.
Good evening. Are you all worn out now? I'll just be quick. It doesn't seem like it's been a year since I was up here talking about last year's budget. Our budget is essentially flat when you take out both the COLA 2% raise and the extra pay period. It's a 1 or 2% increase. Unfortunately, the court's reserves are continuing to trend downward. That's been going on since about 2016. We're trying to offset those decreases by ramping up collections. We're using the Attorney General's office for some collection. We have a law firm that's also doing some deeper, longer-term delinquencies. It's not working that well. We're not getting a very good return on the investment on that. We've applied for 2 grants for new software. I'm pretty excited about that. If you can imagine getting excited about software. It's going to enhance our efficiencies a lot. And it's also going to fulfill some local responsibilities. We're going to be able to start doing our part to facilitate e-tickets, e-citations, e-filings, basically going paperless, text notifications for not just for hearings, but for probation appointments, for fine payment deadlines. It's going to make our system much more efficient, and we're stopping that and
We got 2 grants that we're waiting to hear back on our applications here, hopefully before the end of the year. Mental health challenges in the court. The 20 or so months, 22 months that I've been on the bench, I think that's the thing that surprises me the most. Kind of ties in with what you've been hearing a lot about tonight. There's Butler County's awarded some agencies a grant accesses. I don't know if anybody's still here from Access, but they're providing significant services to that element of our community. And I think you might have heard it, they have 7 offices in Middletown, 7 offices. So they were very instrumental and very helpful to the court system. We're considering the need to expand the probation department. We're getting more defendants on probation. Our probation officers, there's 3 of them, and they have, what one point this year was 600 probationers. That's almost impossible to manage. We're putting more people on probation. That's the best means to help those people utilize the services that are available to get them to the point where they don't recidivize. You know, we're trying to keep them out of jail, keep them out of court, keep them off of probation, keep them working, keep them paying taxes. And the other factor is the jail population decreased from 7 to about 40. And so we're trying to put more people on probation as a response to that. So we might be looking at having to increase that budget in the year or years to come. Kind of to address a little bit what you've been hearing a lot about tonight, the court is seeing an increase in out-of-town, out-of-county offenders. I've been noticing it certainly since the beginning of this year, to the point where I've been asking people, you know, why'd you come to Middletown? Okay, so you got caught shoplifting at Kohl's. Why'd you come here? This is a conversation I had yesterday with a defendant. Well, I came here to see my girlfriend. Well, where's your girlfriend live? Didn't remember where his girlfriend lives. So they're coming here to offend. A lot of them are. Here's an example of a different kind of situation. I had a woman brought into court yesterday. She got locked up over the weekends. There was a bench warrant. She had a speeding ticket. She got picked up out of a community that shall remain nameless in southern Butler County, brought here to Middletown to jail. We processed her speeding ticket, gave her a $50, $75 fine. Done. Well, come to find out, she can't get back to her home in southern Butler County. Had to send her over to the Hope House, not to get housing, but to get a voucher to get back to her home in southern Butler County. Some agency brought her here to deal with a speeding ticket. Do you think they brought her up here from that town to just because she had an outstanding warrant for a speeding ticket? I'll let you be the judge of that. Had another guy, this is a few months ago, he was in a rehab facility in another town in Butler County that shall remain nameless. He became suicidal, at least he had suicidal ideation. They decided that he needed to be removed from their care facility. He was transported by their transportation provider to a hospital in Middletown, 12, 15 miles away. They were within a half a mile or so of a hospital, a full-service hospital that they could have transported that person to. They chose not to transport him to that facility. They transported him to a hospital in Middletown. The rest of that story is he got to Middletown, he assaulted a police officer, and that police officer was injured because an agency decided to bring him to a Middletown hospital rather than the one around the corner. It's an issue that we all have to deal with. So I'm being much more cognizant on the bench of people coming in. I'm getting a lot of offenders from Dayton, and some of them, quite frankly, they're being opportunistic about it. I've asked a few of them, well, I know you're not going to put me in jail. Guess what I did with those people? I put them in jail. So we are seeing some of the issues that you've been faced with tonight, and that it is a trend.
Judge, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would you mind when those situations arise that we share that information, if we're not already doing so, with city staff about nonprofits or these other names?
Certainly not. I have no issue whatsoever with
Thank you.
To the extent that it's public information, and I think almost always would be. I can't.
I appreciate you asking the questions in open court. That's always good.
I'm a resident of Middletown too, and it upsets me just like it upsets each and every one of you, and we're all trying to deal with it in our own ways, and that's one of the things, I can't order somebody out of the city of Middletown, although I hear that's been a practice in some prior administrations. I wish I could do that sometimes. There's some changes that are coming down the pipeline from the Supreme Court. Visiting judges, anytime I have a vacation or a continuing education, all my conferences are in Columbus almost exclusively. I have to bring in a visiting judge. Well, normally we just pay them as they come in. Well, now we're going to be paying them one time a year as dictated by the Supreme Court. So instead of seeing these little line item bills for visiting judges, there'll be one big old chunk of change. It'll amount to the same number, but it'll be one payment instead of several at a time. Bond system is changing. The Supreme Court wants us to go to any county that has more than one municipal court, and Butler County has effectively 6, 3 municipals in 3 areas. They want us to go to a unified bond system. That could be problematic because, what happens in Westchester Area Court is a lot different than what happens in Middletown or Hamilton Municipal Court. So we'll see where that goes, but it looks like that's going to happen, and it's going to happen pretty fast. Another thing that's going to pretty drastically impact the court's budget is, a good portion of the court's income comes from civil filings. The Supreme Court is establishing a civil indigency standard. And what that means is whether or not you're a plaintiff or a defendant, if you qualify for indigency, they will appoint an attorney to represent you. I strike that. That's incorrect. They will waive your filing fees. So, filing fees on civil cases account for a good portion of the court's income, and a good portion of that portion of our income stands a chance of disappearing if this regulation happens, and it looks like it's going to happen. So those are some of the negative things that are coming down the pike. But I am excited about the software. It's not cheap, but it will be well worth it, and I think it'll economize and increase our efficiencies a lot. And thank each of you for spending your evening here, and we appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Judge.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, any questions for Mr. Atkins on his non-public safety budget presentation?
Just one brief question. If we kept our reserves higher than 15%, would that help us at all with the bond rating companies?
Yes.
Yeah, but it would need to be up, as I remember talking to Jake, around 25. I mean, it would be substantially higher. For a substantially longer period of time. It would be several years of holding it at that higher level.
Okay.
I think we made good progress with the increasing revenues. I think that's a positive. I mean, I don't know if it needs to be 25%, but yet, higher would be better. Are we set in terms of, you mentioned the auto and gas tax increase and the increase in the gas tax funding for the license, additional license fee for auto registrations? Have we looked at that at all?
We've looked at it. My understanding is, at least to this point, council hasn't, if I forgot, but I didn't remember.
I didn't know if we'd seen any numbers on that.
That I was supposed to set that up.
Okay. Well, just a question I have, I guess, for council then. I mean, in terms of, do we want to look at what those numbers would be for Middletown?
Jake did that, and I thought we sent that out to you. I thought it was around.
Well, maybe I just couldn't recall it, but okay.
Yeah,
I recall 300,000 number.
Yes,
I don't.
Something like that. I mean, Jake does. We'll have to find the email, but Jake did put that number together, and I thought we sent that out.
Okay.
I don't remember council telling me to move forward with that.
I didn't know if we had any consensus or thoughts on that. I know Hamilton's moved forward with it, as well as I think a couple other municipalities have. I don't know. Is there any interest in council in looking at that a little harder? Or,
Could we see the legislation that Hamilton used? I'd really want to have a good comfort level on how they're restricting that, or how the state has restricted it for the usage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking for the paving side of things, maybe good progress, but I'd want to keep it for that purpose. And then
another kind of maybe Jake question. It's been a while, I think, since we've looked at this as well too, but how are our collections on water and sewer payments? Are we?
I will have to, I have no idea on that, but I can find.
Just looking at it, when the judge mentioned it too, and I was thinking about that when we went through the water thing, the.
Are you looking for delinquency? Is that what you're
delinquencies, we had a effort, it's probably been a few years ago, but they build up over time and typically maybe look to engage a outside firm to help with those collection efforts and make a concerted effort to collect those receivables. And again, with those big numbers in the water and sewer capital
Yes.
budgets, every little bit we can get would certainly help. So,
I will certainly track that down in the next couple of days.
and lastly, we'll get a copy of your presentation.
Yes.
You email that out maybe.
I'll get the Hamilton legislation.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the budget? Okay, with that, we can move to our consent agenda, Ms. Skank.
The approval of the city council minutes from September 17th, 2019.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the issues and actions as listed on the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Vittori?
Yes.
That brings us to our council comments this evening. Start with Mr. Mulligan.
Thank you, Your Honor. I express thanks to the business owners and the residents that presented tonight for the citizen comments portion. I'm sorry that many were not able to remain, but I, for one, feel like it may give council and staff an opportunity to look at the problem with the renewed urgency. And I'd support looking at all available options to see how we fix this issue. Because we have just come too far as a community, especially with our downtown core in the past 10 years, to give up any ground, especially when there's some bad actors maybe in our neighboring jurisdictions that are not doing us any favors. And I guess these phone calls and requests are ineffective over the past 12 months, so we need to use different tactics and work with them to find a suitable way to deal with an issue that's a regional problem. So I will be happy to support council action and staff investigation and any necessary additional appropriations to deal with it quickly.
Most of our problems, there have been, what Josh talked about, the deputy dropping it off. We had one with a hospital, but if I go through 100 of these, 3 of them I can identify. It was them who dropped him off on that day there. Most of these are second, third hand. I was in Fairfield, I talked to somebody, I pulled Fairfield out of the air. Fairfield isn't somebody I've had trouble with. But, I was in another city and they gave me a voucher and well, did you want to come here? Well, I don't know. I mean, it's literally that kind of a conversation. I was on meth 3 hours ago. I don't remember. The guy was 6 foot and he had brown hair. I took a yellow cab. And, what did they tell you? Well, yeah, they said that I could come to a shelter if I came here. And I mean, you're talking to a meth addict or somebody who's mentally ill, trying to get enough information to figure out what's going on. And at 11 o'clock at night when they find somebody at the bus station. And that's the more the norm than, it'd be easy if an ambulance pulled up with some hospital thing on there and they dump a guy out the back. A deputy shows up with a cruiser number that somebody captures. I can do something about that. 95% of what we get is not that way. It's anecdotal. I heard Judge talking about him coming from Dayton. I don't know who's sending them from Dayton. I don't have any information on that. But these are the types of things we're doing.
Well, where are we taking our homeless? If we're taking them outside so we're taking them nowhere.
We're taking them nowhere.
Okay.
And again, it gets back to, it's just, I'll look at the same and say, do 2 wrongs make a right? If they dump them here, do we turn around and we dump them somewhere else? That concerns me too. That's not a great answer.
No, well, we heard tonight some testimony or some comments regarding a facility in Cincinnati where there is wraparound care, where the services are available. So I think that is a more appropriate setting than Middletown at 3 a.m. Where nothing is open.
I don't disagree. We just got to figure out where in Butler County we're going to put it. that we would get enough political support.
I'm not talking about a new facility. I'm talking about an existing facility that was mentioned tonight where there is wraparound services available.
Yeah, thank you.
And the regional facility. Mr. Bohannon?
I relinquish to Councilwoman.
Ms. Vittori?
Well, thank you.
We have 3 minutes? No.
Yeah, just a few. Are you trying to limit?
No.
Okay, I hope not. I'm going to stick with the Days of Awe theme. I love that Rabbi spoke about, that we're all going to try and work together, because that's really my goal. I'm never saying that we're not doing anything, and I'm really never criticizing you and your actions, because I know that this is a very big problem to which there is no silver bullet. I think we can all agree. What I'm trying to figure out is if we break this into short-term, middle, and maybe long-term solutions, what we can do. Obviously, I'm sensitive to the downtown issue since I have businesses there, and I see these people very often. I mean, a lot of them have been just hitting me nonstop for the last week. And I encourage them to speak because I think it's valuable. And honestly, I feel somewhat responsible. I'm going to pass this around, have one of these, because on September of 18, I emailed all of my fellow council and the city manager because I knew that this homeless problem had started to bubble up then. And that was kind of on the heels of Cincinnati and Hamilton announcing that they were going to be cutting down their camps. And that's what concerned me because that left us as still kind of a soft spot. So you guys will probably remember, we had some conversations, let's do a workshop. We had a workshop. And at that workshop, we had Kathy Becker speak, who's obviously an expert. I had talked about a friend of mine from DC who's done huge change there with their population. And then from there, I think we all agreed, if you look at the end of the kind of wrap up of the minutes, it was like, we're going to do something. And so here we are a year later. And I just feel like we need to be super specific at this point. I don't think doing something in a general sense is going to help. I applaud Rodney for speaking out because that got this conversation going. To some of the people that spoke, I think the police are doing a fantastic job, and I think, frankly, they're exhausted because this isn't their job. They shouldn't be having to do this as 90% of what their beats are. So I think when we talk about short term, I think a task force is a great idea, so I'd like to call for a task force. I'd be willing to sit on it. I bet we could get others. I would like to call for some immediate extra funding that we talked about, like for the traffic, and maybe it's those same cops, but maybe we throw another $7,500 at it so that between now and the end of the year, we can have some increased presence. I know that Rodney's talked about putting a cop on a bike. I know we've talked about what hours that might be. Again, I think working together with these business owners, we could probably narrow it down. It's probably 5 a.m. till noon, and then maybe again from 4 in the afternoon till 10 p.m., whatever it may be. But I think between now and the end of the year, this is a critical issue, and it needs to be addressed. It's going to subside when it gets super cold. And then that's going to turn us to another discussion to have that's probably more of a midterm solution. And I think those midterm solutions need to be with stakeholders. We need to talk to Shalom. We need to talk to Hope House. I'm excited about the new facility. I don't feel a lot of transparency around how the current facility is run. Conversations that I've had with them, and I've asked a lot of questions, I don't get good answers. I specifically asked, how many people are not in Middletown at your facility? And the answer was like, oh, probably like one.
No, just over half.
Right? I mean, I was like, my dog. I'm like, why? Because I knew that wasn't true.
Over
and then I asked about programming. It was like, oh, we have programming all day long. Right? I drive by at 8:30 in the morning. Everyone's streaming out the door. So everyone has their best interest, I know, of Middletown and our community at heart. I just want to know more about how these things are going to run. What is the new Hope House doing? I'm excited for the facility, but what is it doing programming-wise? To Joe's point, and I agree 100% because that was Kathy Becker's recommendation, if you look back to our workshop minutes, we need to talk about daytime programming. If you look at cities that are making real change, yes, it's severe. We don't want people freezing to death, so we have to give them shelter. But by letting them go in the morning so that they roam about, we're not changing anything. We're not helping anything. So whether it be engaging with access and giving them a building, because I'm sure we've got some, I would be open to that concept. But midterm solutions, what can we do with Shalom and Hope House as we're entering this cold season? So I don't know if this task force can come together before that so we can start talking about solutions, but I think that would be an important kind of middle ground to see what we can do in the next 6 to 12 months. And then I think long-term solutions are probably, do we build some kind of facility that's got daytime programming, or is the Hope House going to be doing that? And how can we work regionally with our other neighboring cities? I think another short-term solution, and I had mentioned this before, we need to stop saying unsaid town. Like, why are we protecting these people?
Because generally, it's second, third-hand
But it's
information.
not.
I
Here's the
don't
thing.
call out
Mika
somebody.
has video. Mika has video of 2 different probation officer cars. She's got Hamilton PD.
Never been shared with me.
Okay, so but my point is, why don't we work with people like Mika, the library, people where we have cameras, the bus station? We've got cameras around the city. Let's mobilize them and let's get the video. I've seen video that a business owner took of Hamilton PD dropping someone off.
I have not.
I will
Again,
gladly.
we're the ones that would hopefully be able to do something,
Right.
and we're not seeing that.
Well, Mika, I thought, said that she'd already talked to the police, but maybe not. So maybe we just need to, again, maybe this task force can formalize a way to capture. I mean, doesn't the library have cameras? Because I think people get dumped
extensive,
at
but
the
the
library.
answer is
So, but like, we need a process, right? Like, how are we watching these cameras? And honestly, for me, we need to make a public statement. And this is what I was saying a year ago when I wanted to have our homeless meeting. Like, if Hamilton and Cincinnati are publicly saying, we aren't gonna allow these tent cities, and they're publicly saying things, then everyone hears them. We're not publicly saying anything. I would like to publicly say that I don't believe humans should be dumped in other cities. And I would like to ask all of our neighboring communities to stop doing that. And I would like to put something in place to prohibit it. And I don't know if it's legislation. I shared with you guys earlier today in Los Angeles. They passed that very simple ordinance that basically called out some of the bad actors in the ordinance, which I thought was super interesting, and basically said they were going to fine them. I think we should research that kind of ordinance. And again, we'd have to prove it, which means we have cameras, but we tell everyone we have cameras. And we just make it less likely. Then we're not the joke. I mean, I've heard from some of our officers that go to these meetings with other interjurisdictional, and we're a joke. Some guy came to a meeting the other day late, and he's like, where were you? And he's like, I was dumping someone in Middletown, and everyone laughed in the room. That makes me scream in my head. And that's why I send you guys 100 emails, because it's not okay. And I'm tired of just sitting back and protecting other people and not saying it and waiting. I think we have to take action. So I would like to propose that we do something about putting cops on the street between now and the end of the year so that our business owners can feel safe and our residents can feel safe. I would like to start putting together a list of the bad actors with proof so we can reach out to Mika, the library, whoever's got cameras. I would like to make some kind of public statement as a city that says we are not okay with this, that humans shouldn't be dumped like trash. And within our city limits, we're working towards making that a penalty of some sort. Because I think those things, just putting them out there can help. The handout I gave you was because I don't know if you guys know, I drive around. When people send me things and say there's a tent city, I drive over and I see it and I take pictures. And I don't know if you guys realize how many of these are happening. There are people living on our streets. It's not safe or healthy for them, and it's not safe or healthy for our residents. And it shouldn't be up to our cops to constantly be having to bust them, unless we're able to pay them overtime and give them the space to properly handle it.
And again, overtime is a short-term solution because they
Yes.
are exhausted.
Yes. Well, I'd like to.
We will just burn them up at some
In 2020, perhaps we should consider an extra position. And I don't know if it's one of the traffic cops, but maybe it's just reorganizing or adding another cop. It's 70 grand a year, but this problem to me is worth 70 grand.
Agree.
And I just think we as a council, we have to decide to take action now. Like, I want action now. So I'd like these short-term things discussed and figured out, and then I'd like to make a very tight schedule to try and attack this mid and then long-term solutions. So what do we have to do now? Lawyer guy, what do we do?
Well, I think probably the best thing we could do is simply direct staff, because I mean, it's our job to,
Well, I can't direct staff.
No,
You have to direct Doug.
well.
And then
Doug
directs
is our staff.
I
Doug
got
is
in
our
trouble
staff.
for that.
But, well, yeah, so, address the city manager then, to be clear, to,
Okay.
come back with his recommendations regarding these things. I mean, I think I heard from Mr. Mulligan, I think he's interested in some increased enforcement. I hear that from you for some short-term solutions there. Is that what I kind of gathered? And, addressing this regionally, which I think did come up in the conversation with Kathy Becker, and that's why I was hoping to get an update on where we are with the county, and I don't want to pass on Vice Mayor Moon, but just to let you know the process. The county in terms of where they are with their solutions, because again, Hamilton's dealt with this. It's a regional issue. I don't know that providing a facility to access is necessarily the best thing for Middletown, the best thing to address the solution. But I think there's a wide variety of things we can do. I don't know if we'll solve it all right here on a Tuesday evening, but I think, you know, your point of raising the awareness and raising the issue is an important one, and one we need to do more of. We do need to make sure it is fact-based. I hate to point fingers if we don't have that, but
if we've got people that are getting the data, getting that information, we need to make sure they can get it to the police department and report appropriately. That's, you know, that's concern I have. If we know people are reporting it and we have that data, I mean, that's valuable information. Wanted to charge people for trespassing, charge people for indecent exposure in public. I mean, those are actionable items that the police department take action on, but people need to report it. And now, on the flip side, if we're not responding appropriately on the police department side, and I think we generally are, but we also have some anecdotal stories there, we need to make sure that's happening. So I think that's where we can direct the city manager to make sure the chief is gathering that data and getting information from the judge on where he's seeing people come from. I think we can get a comprehensive kind of solution. Task forces are nice. I mean, it can be nice to get, you know, people together, but a lot of times that, having lived through the heroin task force issues, I mean, that was a multi-year, I mean, process. And I mean, we have to start someplace.
Right.
Believe me. So I think that may be a good step. But I think we need to probably just provide some direction to staff to begin to look at that. So, and I didn't hear from Mr. Bohannon, but I gather he's somewhat supportive of these things.
Yes, I am.
He yielded his time to Ms. Vittori.
So can we say that we're gonna look at spending some more money this year in overtime and figure out what that looks like?
You're looking at me, you need to be looking
Yeah.
at your other four
Yeah.
council members. I need 3 of you to tell me to do it.
Yes, anybody else? Okay.
Please, yeah, bring
Okay.
back some
That helps.
recommendations.
Can we make some kind
I
of
was
a
gonna get there.
public statement that we do not condone the dropping off of human beings in our city?
Would you
And
like
that
to
we
do that?
will
Would you like to do
begin
that
to
through a
track it?
resolution? What would you like,
Yeah.
how would you like to do that?
Yeah, I would think Shelby, as our communications person, could probably craft something for us to look at. I was noodling through some thoughts from my State of the City, which is going to be coming up in terms of addressing this as a topic and a key issue, and again, continuing that discussion. But I think if city manager were able to have our communications director begin to craft something, gather some of the data, maybe reach out to some of the partners we heard from tonight, folks at Access and others, so we can be clear in terms of our communication as to what we're seeing and put the awareness out there, and we can craft a communication to other folks and or adopt that as a resolution. We can move forward with that formally.
And then going forward, how can we coalesce all the data? What's the best process if Mika's got video in the library and that we've got actual proof of these bad actors? What's the best format?
Guess the question is,
I'd say put them on the city website, post the video.
I love Joe Mulligan some days, I really do.
3 of you tell me it's okay, we'll put it on.
I'd support
Again,
it.
I mean, they have online filing for police reports, right?
They do.
Capability for folks to load
Yep.
videos as part of that.
I don't know. We can-
I mean, I think that would be the best way to do it. I mean, if you have that way it's going to the police department to get tracked. I'm assuming something happened that just doesn't go into cyberspace, but I'm assuming the process works through.
I mean, although, I mean, I was half joking about it,
No.
putting it on the city's website. I'm not sure that would be good for potential.
Well, again,
tourism and visitors.
for all the problems that we're having now, I still have to work with all these jurisdictions
Yeah.
for other things.
Sure.
And that's why.
And they
you know,
need to
when I
work with
have
us.
Something that's,
And they need to work with us.
right.
The conversations that you've had, I'm sure have helped some, but not, I mean, we're seeing an
And that,
uptick.
it moves it from the anecdotal and the story to
Right, to
fact-based.
Sure.
So if we have that, I mean, that's, I believe.
I agree.
Mr.
Yeah,
Lawball
agree.
said.
And I
Give
can
us
tell
some
you,
shit.
in the year that we have done this, I've not seen one video. No one has ever given
Well,
a video
the
that.
chief and I saw
Josh has-
Josh's.
Yeah.
Right.
So the
Josh
chief,
is-
you may not have seen it, but the chief.
Yeah.
saw it.
And the chief knows. I mean, there was an incident again today, I know.
I know
So
is
he's-
different than I can prove, and I can call somebody out publicly.
But maybe we need to give the officers a format, because I know that anecdotally, there was an officer who would talk about working a shift where you would just see other municipalities, you're dropping people off right at the end of 75. So does that officer have a way to document that in a way that rolls back up to you? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Right.
what I think might be missing, because I think these guys probably all have firsthand knowledge of this happening, but maybe there's not a process to roll that up. And that's what we need. We need one point person that's gonna take all these videos or whatever officer's experience so that it's in one place and then it can be used effectively. So I don't know what that process.
Sounds like a great job for the chief.
Yes.
Got about 2 weeks to get that done then. Before he's.
He can spend his next 2 weeks doing that.
We're really a victim of our own our own ability to handle these
That's
folks.
exactly right. We've been kind and helpful more than most cities our size, and we are now paying a price for doing that. There's exactly some truth.
I mean, when you've got 6 locations for addicts, I mean, why not drop your people off here? They know that there's going to be some place that they can go.
We offer more services than anybody around.
It's just not, yeah.
Well, and Chief mentioned that in his email that I also put into that paper from a year ago, that literally when they ask people, how'd you end up here? They'll be like, oh, we Googled cheap places to live, or this guy in Gary, Indiana.
It
told
used
us
to be a
go
great thing with Section 8. You
I
could
mean-
get a Section 8 voucher and
Yeah.
food stamps and
So again, that's why I think these public statements are important, you know, and they have to be crafted well, which I know Shelby can do. It's like we're not compassionate humans, but we have to be compassionate to our own residents as well. Like we have a duty to respond to their needs and the limited resources we have. So we've got to get this out there that we can no longer support the problems of other communities.
Yeah, I agree with what my colleagues have said. If I were a resident or a council member of one of these other jurisdictions, I'd be disappointed, I'd be embarrassed. Because these are not Amazon packages you drop off on somebody's porch and walk away. These are humans. So I appreciate everybody that showed up tonight. I look forward to working together with them and figuring out a solution. So I'll look forward to seeing the data as it comes in and appreciate everybody's comments.
Did you just wrap me up so that you could?
Slightly, yes.
Everybody was jumping in. I felt like I was going to miss my chance.
The only thing I would want to ask about is the legislation. Like, does anyone else support looking into legislation like Los Angeles, where we actually start to find these people if we can provide proof?
It's very difficult to prove,
Even if you have video?
perhaps.
I'd be
But
curious to
again,
see what our law director
generally,
has to
it's
say about
not an
that.
ambulance showing up, it's a taxi dropping somebody off.
Right, but at least the ones that say like, whatever probation office,
But again, are you gonna do a legislation for something that happens twice a year?
I don't think it's twice a year, from what I've
The
heard.
ambulances are showing up here and dropping stuff
The
off?
probation, the police, other municipality, PDs, that's more than twice this year. So can we say that we would like the law department to investigate it?
I mean, I think, does Susan get a copy of that
Susan does
ordinance
have a copy,
from?
she's on vacation, so she won't see it till next week, but yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious, to the enforceability of that was the question I had in my mind. It seemed to be addressed towards hospital facilities and nonprofits within Los Angeles, which is a little different of where you can enforce it. I don't know that Los Angeles can tell Sacramento not to send anybody down south.
Well, they called out people in that legislation, if you look.
But within Los Angeles. probably.
Right.
Right, well, we can call out all the probation officers in Middletown.
Right,
Yeah, our reach doesn't go far beyond our
Right.
borders. That's the one challenge we probably have.
I've got about 10 notes of your flurry of activity here. I will try to gather them tomorrow and
Okay.
send them back to you all to make
That'd be
sure you
helpful.
heard it correctly,
Okay.
and then we'll start moving forward.
Okay. Anything else, Vice Mayor Moon?
No,
Or
sir.
Ms. Vittori? Ms. Vittori, anything else? Okay.
I'm done.
Appreciate
Thank
your
you.
leading the effort on this. No, this was very good. I do appreciate, this issue, as we kind of heard, has been brewing for a little while. One time is not does not a trend make, but there are, I think we've seen certainly enough stuff that it's affecting residential life, it's affecting commercial life, and I think it's important for the city to step up and do a number of things. And I think everyone here wants to be compassionate about it, but I think we do need to really step up our efforts. One, in terms of making sure the issue is out there. I think we'll have plenty to share and communicate with our cohorts and other communities. But again, I think part of it's working on a regional solution to do that. And again, I look forward to hearing what the county has to say in terms of their progress, because they do get a fair amount of money for job and family services to address all these issues. And I think there's some solutions that can be addressed there more broadly and come to some good workable solutions to solve our issues here. And there's some stuff we can do. I think certainly stepping up that police enforcement is going to be a big part of that, addressing hot areas. But it all is also, as Mr. Atkins brought up, I think, incumbent upon business owners. We hear it from larger corporations that have their own enforcement. The hospital has their police officers. We might need to look at a partnership with downtown owners and focus on them. I mean, it's a shared problem, and I think working together we can work to address it. On a positive note, I do look forward to we have the First Friday coming up this weekend. I think good activities downtown. I think people will be downtown. I've been downtown a fair amount, and
certainly people are still coming out, so I don't think the world is ending by any means in downtown Middletown. We haven't turned off the lights or anything like that, but I think the more people we have down there to address it, the better off we'll be, and I think look forward to a good weekend of activities there. And I did also want to mention to council, I am working on the state of the city. I don't have a date set, but I expect it to be finalized this month, and we'll have some information out to council and the public on that as I work on getting that date set and providing the address, and certainly have plenty of good things and certainly plenty of opportunistic things to talk about that we can address going forward. And with that, Mr. Yoder, we can move to our legislation for this evening.
For the most exciting part of the
For the
whole
most
show,
exciting
right?
part of the show, yes.
Very good.
You've been waiting for your starring role. I know, so.
That's right. Council, you got 10 items on your legislative agenda tonight. I just noted the outset for item number 4, staff's requesting it be passed on its first reading with an emergency declaration, so I'd request that the charter requirements for a second reading and 30-day enactment be waived.
I move to waive the charter provision requiring a reading on 2 separate days and to declare the previously read ordinance an emergency measure and read one time only.
So moved.
Okay. Could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Very good. First item is ordinance number O-2019-54, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the rehabilitation of the bridge on eastbound State Route 122 over University Boulevard. This is a second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
Second?
Any other discussion or comments? I know we had a presentation on this last time. Anything to add, Mr. Atkins?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Okay, second item on the agenda is ordinance number O-2019-55, an ordinance amending the pay and benefits ordinances, specifically ordinance number 02 or O-2019-81 and ordinance number O-2019-82. Again, this is a second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Any other discussion or comments from council? That's pretty straightforward. Nothing to add, Mr. Atkins?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Thank you. The third item on the agenda is ordinance number O-2019-56, an ordinance authorizing a development agreement with Shepherd Chemical to waive permit fees. Second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, other discussion or comments? Mr. Atkins?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Thank you. Fourth on the agenda is ordinance number O-2019-57, previously spoken about. This is an ordinance approving an amendment to an agreement with NTE Ohio LLC, providing for the construction of a power generation facility as a development project in tax exemption pursuant to the State Urban Jobs and Enterprise Zone Program, in making determination in connection therewith and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. Back in 2015, we passed ordinance numbers O-2015-21 to provide incentives for the NTE Energy Plant through the Enterprise Zone Agreement. The Ohio Department of Taxation is responsible for then determining and assessing the taxable value of that. As what they got ready to do that, there were some questions about what was personal, what was real property. We have resolved those differences. The agreement you have cleans that up so that NTE can get their tax exemption. And we are asking for emergency so that the Ohio State Department of Taxation can process and either work with NTE.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Vettori.
Yes.
Thank you. Fifth item on the agenda is ordinance number O-2019-58. It's an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Midas Midwest LLC for repairs to the Bonita Drive and Jackson Lane storm sewer and declaring an emergency. No actions requested until October 15, 2019.
Okay. Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor, this will be a first reading. We will ask for emergency passage at the October 15 meeting so we can get it done this construction season. City's proposing to proceed with the Bonita Drive and Jackson Lane storm sewer repairs, which consists of repairing the deteriorated metal pipes by applying an internal mortar lining. Midwest LLC did provide the best proposal. They are the lowest and best bid.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Atkins? Okay, thank you.
Next up is item 6 is ordinance number O 2019-59, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Insight Pipe Contracting LLC for the 2019 sanitary sewer lining Part 2 project and declaring an emergency. Again, no actions requested until the October 15th, 2019 meeting.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor, as with the other one, this is requesting an emergency passage at the next meeting to get it done this year. We are proposing to proceed with the 2019 sanitary sewer lining Part 2 project, which consists of constructing a cured-in-place liner to replace defective sanitary sewer mains on various streets. We did advertise that and took bids. We are bypassing the low bid in this case to cover, the second bid covers the cost of the performance bond and anticipated potential quantity overruns as shown on the proposal spreadsheet. This is in the 2019 budget and it's coming out of the sewer capital fund. But we are bypassing the low bid. We felt the second bid was more complete to get the job done as anticipated.
Okay. Any questions from council?
How much of a difference was there in low bid to second bid?
Apologize. I do have that.
27 and 16.
Yeah, 273 to 297.
Gotcha.
Nothing further. Item 7 is ordinance number O 2019-60, an ordinance to enact section 660.22 unsolicited materials of the Middletown codified ordinances. First reading.
All right, Mr. Atkins?
Yeah, as you're aware, staff and council particularly regularly hear concerns from citizens that advertising and unsolicited items are thrown basically at our driveways or dumped in inappropriate locations. This is patterned after, I think, both Cincinnati and Monroe, who have enacted an ordinance to restrict the placement of unsolicited materials to the front porch, to the front door, through the mail slot, in between the storm door and the front door, central distribution box. In some neighborhoods, hooks attached to the U.S. mailboxes or personally given to the resident of the property. This would, of course, not affect regular U.S. postal delivery. This would still allow the homeowner to restrict access to their property pursuant to statutes in place to prevent trespassing by posting appropriate signage. The idea is to quit getting those advertising things thrown all over the place and collecting in our streets.
Thank you. 12 years as mayor, and it's a dream come true here. So.
Took us a long time to find something we thought we
there's
could
some
defend.
good First Amendment issues there, but
Yeah.
I'm glad we got some progress on that. Thank you.
Item 8 is ordinance number O 2019-61, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a job incentive grant agreement with Midwest Ammunition LLC. Again, a first reading.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes, this is for Midwest Ammunition. They are currently operating in St. Clair Township, Ohio. They are seeking to purchase a new facility and expand their growing operations. They currently employ 40 full-time employees at a payroll of $1.5 million. They are hoping to double their operation within the next 2 years. They see, what else do we have? Purchase a new facility down on University. They would be moving their entire operation, as I understand it, from St. Clair to Middletown. It would be a nice addition to our business community.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Atkins? Okay, thank you.
Item 9, ordinance number O 2019-62, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Smart Bill Ltd. for the printing and mailing of water bills. First reading.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. The city presently mails about 21,000 water bills each month. In 2009, the city bid the service out and took Smart Bill on as the lowest and best bid. We've been using them ever since. It's worked very well. They provide excellent service and they're willing to extend the contract for another year at the same price. We did recently bid out, the mailing of our tax bills. Smart Bill came back with the lowest out of 9 bids. We previously approved that contract at the August 20 meeting. We are asking to continue with Smart Bill for the water bills as well.
Okay, very good. Any questions for Mr. Atkins?
Have we ever looked at, can people opt into getting email and then save on printing?
And again, that's for the finance part of the budget. Those are those portal payrolls
Okay.
that we're
Yes.
setting up. And
Okay.
Get my water bill.
yeah, we're trying to set all that up for next.
Beautiful thing.
Okay, I wasn't
Yes,
sure
ma'am.
if I included that. Thank you.
All right, last item, item 10 is resolution number R 2019-30, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for improvements to Central Avenue between University Boulevard and Verity Parkway. First reading.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. City of Middletown's received federal funding to rehabilitate Central Avenue from University Boulevard to Verity Parkway. It's programmed for construction in 2022. This agreement will allow us to use the ODOT's local public agency program to design, bid, and administer the construction contract. It costs us nothing.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Atkins? All right, thank you. All right, our last item is an executive session, so I need a motion under the authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G2. Consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property, competitive bidding, if premature disclosure of information will give an unfair, competitive, or bargaining advantage. And also under the authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G8, to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, provided that both of the following conditions apply. One, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under any provision of Chapter 715, 725, 1724, or 1728, or Section 701.07, 3735.67 to 3735.70, 5709.40 to 5709.43, 5709.61 to 5709.69, 5709.73 to 5709.75, or 5709.77 to 5709.81 of the revised code, or that involves public infrastructure improvements or extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project. And two, under a unanimous quorum of the public body determines by roll call vote that the executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Mulligan?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Vettori?
Yes.
All right, following executive sessions, we'll be in recess until our meeting on October 15th in these chambers. Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you, Your Honor.